Welcome back to part 2 of our How to Write Fairy Tale Retelling series. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of this workshop. In today's video, we're going to use all the concepts from part 1 to help us workshop the beginnings of your own fairy tale. So if you haven't seen part 1, definitely check that out and then come back here to get started. First, I'll introduce you to the free worksheet that will help you both explore the beautiful messages that have helped these stories endure for centuries and determine the problematic themes that might need a little bit more reimagining in the modern retellings that you're going to write. We're going to do a live demonstration of how to break down a fairy tale using this worksheet. Then we're going to look at authors like Gail, Carson, Levine, and Marissa, Meyer, and how they took these elements that we're working with and flipped the script and created empowered, fresh versions of their own fairy tales. I'll even share a bit about my own Cinderella retelling and how I tackled some of those tricky tropes. By the end, you'll be ready to break down your favorite fairy tales and start building a retelling that's powerful, relevant, and uniquely yours. Don't forget to like this video if you find it helpful and drop a comment below. Ready? Let's get started. In our last video, we talked about theme in your novels. I hope you've taken a moment to brainstorm all the positive and negative messages that are wrapped up in your fairy tale. If you have some, then it's time to get started with our worksheet. For a free download, click the link in the video description and get your very own digital copy to print or edit as we go along. You'll see that page 1 is all about theme, but not just the theme of the story you want to tell, but the theme of who you are as an author too. That's what's going to make your story unique and a story that only you can tell. But we'll get to that in a minute. First, we're going to write down all those positive and negative themes that you've identified in your fairy tale. Let's do this together with one of the most classic tales of all time, Cinderella. First, what are some of the beautiful themes or positive messages from Cinderella? First on the list for me was perseverance. Cinderella, despite her difficult circumstances, remained kind, patient, and hopeful. That's a trait that I really wanted to celebrate, so I'm going to emphasize it. Next, kindness and compassion. Cinderella treats everyone with respect, including animals and her stepfamily, even when they're ungrateful or don't necessarily deserve it. She shows that kindness and compassion has nothing to do with how others treat you and everything to do with who you are as a person. Inner beauty. Cinderella, even though she gets a pretty ball gown and impractical footwear, actually has a lot of qualities that make her a beautiful person. I like that we can focus on how true beauty shines from within, whether you're in a ball gown or rags. Intrinsic worth. Cinderella stays consistent, whether she's being a mistreated servant or a radiant princess. This really drives home the point that our circumstances don't define our worth. Justice and reward. Face it, we all love to see evil get their comeuppance, and this fairy tale shows how Cinderella's kindness is rewarded with a happy ending and a resolution to her unfortunate circumstances. Breaking social barriers. Even when the prince discovers that the girl he loves is a servant, he's not suddenly like, meh, she's beneath me, right? This fairy tale reinforces that love should be based on genuine connection rather than superficial factors like wealth or status. Dreaming. Cinderella encourages us to dream big and aspire to something greater. These positive messages and themes have made Cinderella a beloved and enduring fairy tale, and these are some of the reasons why we all love it so much. So when I'm writing my story, it needs to hold on fast to these themes. Readers already love Cinderella because of these themes, so you don't want to betray that. Negatives. Now we've discussed positives, yes, but the original Cinderella fairy tale, like many traditional fairy tales, contains some problematic and negative messages that could be reimagined into positive current messages. So here's a few examples. Passivity. Though she's a sweetheart and a dreamer, Cinderella is also kind of a passive character who waits for her fairy godmother to solve her problems. This is something we're going to want to address if we're going to make her the hero of her own destiny. Beauty standards. In the original story, Cinderella is beautiful and kind, and her stepsisters are sometimes depicted as mean and ugly. We want to make sure that beauty doesn't equal good and ugly equals bad. Again, let's hold on fast to that inner beauty positive that we need to emphasize from our positives list. Classism. The ugly stepsisters are social climbers. Their interest in the prince is related to their desire for comfort and wealth and not any real attraction to him. We want to make sure that Cinderella isn't going to the ball to snag a prince as her means to escape her own social predicament. Otherwise, she's no different. Gender roles. While Cinderella ends up in the castle with the prince, we do want to be careful. Cinderella shouldn't only escape her bad situation because she found a man to save her. She should also be incredibly proactive in working out her happily ever after. These are just a few ideas, but now you know how to go through your fairy tale and analyze. If we tackle these themes, your readers are going to love it, especially if you create more positive current messages that promote agency, diversity, empathy, and equality. Now we are really solid on our positive and negative messaging, so we're going to pause for a second and think about you. Aside from the positive themes in this fairy tale, what do you believe in? Stop and think. What's the one thing you wish everyone in the world could know? What do you think would make the world a better place? Then write it down on the worksheet. There is something you believe in and value so deeply that it belongs in your core, and no matter what story you're telling, what genre you're working with, that theme is going to come out. So if you're done brainstorming, we're going to clarify this into your personal theme, and that begins with an I believe statement. Do you want to hear mine? I believe that there is courage in compassion. Compassion is always going to be a theme in my books. One of the most frequent comments I get on my debut novel is, will the villain get a redemption arc? My readers feel compassion for everyone in my books, not just the good guys, because compassion is the theme. I give them the experience of feeling compassion in real life while they're experiencing the story. Next, you're going to come up with a statement of what you want to write. This isn't going to focus on genre. This is more about the type of story you're always going to tell, what kind of characters, and what kind of stakes. For example, I write stories about optimistic rebels who change the world. So if we break it down, my characters are optimistic rebels, and my stakes are like the world hanging in the balance. These are going to show up in all of my stories, no matter what. Some other examples could be, I write stories about cinnamon roll sweethearts who find healing through love. I write stories about brave dreamers who dare to rewrite their destiny. I write stories about ordinary people who rise to impossible challenges. You get the picture? So now that you have your I believe statement and what you write about, write it into one clear sentence. I believe there's courage and compassion, and I write stories about optimistic rebels who change the world. This is going to be your North Star when you're writing any fairy tale retelling. In fact, this could be your whole style brand as an author. Now, let's see how some other fairy tale retelling authors have amplified those positive messages and flipped the negatives. Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine is a novel that retells the story of Cinderella with a fabulous twist. In this version, Ella of Frel is cursed at birth by a fairy who curses her to always obey any command given to her. This curse proves to be a burden for Ella as she navigates a world of really cruel and selfish people who try to take advantage of her obedience. This novel had a huge positive influence on me as a 10-year-old girl who discovered it in her school library. First, it promotes the idea of empowerment through agency. Despite the curse that limits her freedom, Ella is actually a really strong and resourceful character who takes control of her own fate. She doesn't wait for someone else to save her, but instead works to free herself from the curse and stand up to those who would harm her. It challenges traditional gender roles. There's even a moment when the prince comes to rescue Ella, who has been captured by ogres, but she's actually managed to figure it out on her own by the time he gets there, and his soldiers think she's pretty boss. It highlights the importance of empathy and kindness. Ella, even though she's forced to obey, often finds ways to help those that she's been forbidden to befriend. It's heartbreaking to see others limit her ability to show compassion, but it's really inspiring to see the way that she circumnavigates her limitations. Marissa Meyer created strong, capable protagonists who take charge of their own destinies. Each of the main characters in this series is really fierce, an independent young woman who faces challenges and overcomes obstacles to achieve their goals. It also includes a diverse cast and became an amazing source of representation for so many readers. Here's a few of the highlights of how Myers used the themes in Cinderella. Cinder highlights the concept of inner beauty. Cinder is a cyborg. She's half machine, half human, and because of that, she's considered the lowest in society. There are a lot of moments when she really struggles with the concept of her worth and how she fits in because of this, especially when she has to confront a queen who can cast illusions and make herself incredibly beautiful. But we can see all the amazing things that she is. She's a fearless leader. She's a loyal friend, absolute sweetheart, and brilliant mechanic. We're rooting for her every step of the way. Dreaming. Cinder is full of so many imaginative interpretations of the story of Cinderella. I couldn't stop thinking about it for, well, it's been 10 years and I'm still in love with this story. But not only do we enjoy watching Cinder dream, but it inspires us to use our own imagination and visualize what we want the world to be. Evil stepfamilies. Cinder really challenges this problematic trope that all stepfamilies are evil by showing how one of her adoptive family members is a really close friend. We see how loyal Cinder is to Peony, and it helps differentiate that the people in Cinder's stepfamily are just people. They're individuals who can choose kindness or selfishness. When I wrote my Cinderella retelling, I based it on the Egyptian version of Cinderella that was recorded by Greek historians thousands of years ago. In my version, Cinderella was a captive Greek slave living in Egypt. To challenge the concept of her being passive in her situation, I had her take an active role in working toward buying her own freedom. Then, when the fairy godmother character came to free her, she didn't just settle for the good enough ever after that the godmother gave her. My Cinderella went after the ending she wanted, even when the fairy godmother started to oppose her. Okay, time to get to work. Use your worksheet, make it through the prompts, then come back for part 3 where we're going to dive deeper into the fairy tale genre essentials. If this helped spark some ideas for your own retelling, give this video a like and share it with a fellow writer. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the rest of this fairy tale retelling series. We've got even more inspiration, writing tips, and story magic coming your way. And tell me in the comments, what's one thing you would change about the original Cinderella story, and why? I'd love to hear your take. Thanks for watching, and remember, your story isn't just a retelling, it's a reimagining of what could be.